welcome back. It's now 9 minutes away from 7 o'clock. And as promised before the break, we're joined by representatives from the Belize City Council to talk about property taxes, trade licenses, and also liquor licenses. Joining us, we have Marilyn Ordonez, Director of Finance. We have Candice Miller, City Administrator. We have Troy Smith, Valuation Manager, and Frank Thompson, Revenue Manager. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning. Good morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is a big topic, so we have to make sure that we cover it. Let's talk a little bit about the importance of all these licenses in the fees and the taxes in terms of what is achieved at the City Council.
Okay, I'll go ahead. It's very important because those are the revenue that funds our operations. And without those revenue, we can't run the city. So it's very important that we try as much as possible to collect the revenue that that the city sets out to collect. Property tax collects about 42% of our revenue comes from property tax. For the trade license and the traffic fees, those are other main sources. They bring about 20% each. And then we have, we get a subvention from government, which both of them are about 5 or 6% each that they contribute. And then we have other small fees that brings in the remainder. So it's important that we educate our public about their rights and obligations in terms of the fees and taxes that they pay so that we can do the collection and run the city in a fair way, at least to try and give the public the service and the satisfaction they need to see the city grow and develop.
Now, of course, this has been an area that has been difficult for the City Council in terms of not only collecting but educating the public with regards to the way that very often the valuation takes place. So perhaps that's one of the areas that we can start off by looking at that. Has there been any changes in terms of the way properties, especially in the business domain, are assessed?
Yes, good morning. One of the things that we want to actually inform the public, that when you become the owner of a property, a lot of people believe that they should not notify the local authority. They should within 30 days. When you build a building, the City Council now have under its jurisdiction the LBA, which is the local building authority, where you must get your plan approved and you must build within the prescribed of the plan. Also is that taxes based on rent, we charge two taxes. 9% when your property is occupied is on the rental value, when there's a structure there. And 2% when the property is unoccupied, when it's vacant, there is no structure, nothing there, is 2% of the market value of your property. Also, people believe that because they are a lease owner of a property, they should only pay lease tax, but you should also pay property tax. Why is that? Because of the service, the infrastructure, the service, that the essential service that the council provide. Belize City is roughly a progressive and a growing city. If you look at the declared areas we call the St. Martin, the Porus, the Belma Phase 4, the Phase 5 is coming on stream, the extension of port. And so a lot of people, those who do not have a assessment on the tax rolls, should come in and notify the council that their property is completed. Now I have access and I'm not paying taxes. And so many people want access but don't pay. And this is the thing we want to inform the general public, that taxes, the property tax, is who own the land, because property means land. And so a lot of people believe because I own a house, the tax should be in my name. No, it's who own the property. And so the assessment basically is collecting rent data and then apply the rate. The council every year declare the rates for taxes, especially property taxes, the rate must be declared by the council. And in 2015, the rate remained the same, which is the 9% for occupied and 2% for unoccupied. Also is that the issue of when the fees due. Every year the fees due April of each year, the fiscal year, not the calendar year. Also the council give an incentive. If you pay early, you get a 10% for early payment, and the senior citizen is due the year of 25%, providing that you are 65, providing that you live at that premise. So if you have 3 buildings, and you don't see any citizen where you live, is where the discount will apply.
25%.
So the 25. So it's a wrapping city. The city council changed the regular business of order because people they bill and we do it. We have to go there do inspection. We have to zone the city, and so it's a tremendous task to ensure that everybody is on the tax roll.
Now, we know one of the changes of recent has been the move by the council to collect upon property tax, where a lot of people had not necessarily been up to mark with the payments that they should have made, tying it into different, to the driver's license, for example, and any other business that they have to do with the council. Has that been an effective method, and what would you say is the percentage that you have been able to collect since implementing that?
Okay. Well, the method, it's twofold. It has been effective to a certain degree, but what it has also done is cause us to lose revenue by having persons with licenses move to traffic department, or transport department, sorry, to bypass paying that tax. So, yes, there's an increase because some people come in and say, well, if you never block me, I know me I come in none at all. So, some people pay 5, 6, 7 years of taxes because they need that service. Percentage-wise, I would say maybe about 3–4% increase, but on a tax base of almost $10 million, 3% is a lot.
Now, the issue of, let's start with property tax first, because we know trade license is another issue. The valuation of the property. A lot of times people wait until they receive their bill for the property tax to say, well, this isn't what my property is valued. What is the process to be able to ensure that you are charged a property tax that you're comfortable with or that you are well aware of?
Well, one of the things I explained earlier is the issue of collect data, proper data. Another time we have what called the questionnaires that goes out to the property owner to fill out. And many times you find wrong information comes on a questionnaire with rental values, market values, and so we use what call the feasibility comparable method, whereby you look at the area, the infrastructure, the service, so as to arrive at a value, and that is based on the market. And so when a person receives an assessment, that person, if that person agrees, the law provides that the person can appeal. But before you appeal, you must comply before you complain. Another time people need to understand that the appeal process is in effect. The process of assessment and the collection and the notifications are there. But people believe that they look at other property and say, but he's smaller, I'm bigger. What 2 different taxes? That is unfair. But they look on rental component. It's very, very challenging because you can live at your property and William live besides you, but he is not renting. But the law says it is equal to the amount in which a building or property might be reasonable to expect to rent from A to A. So it's based on rental value, you see? And so a lot of people believe that because my assessment is high, I will not pay until the council revised. No, it's the other way. You must comply, and then the council look into your concern. But you must have grounds. And how long is the appeals process? Well, the process is once you pay within a prescribed time, so it takes about a couple weeks. I said about because there's a hearing. There's a hearing that this is proceed and prescribed. But a lot of time people don't pay. And they wait and wait and wait. So what we have done, we have changed that. What we have done in the sense of expedite the process. Once you receive a letter, we send that letter out to you, immediately tell you your rights and the process in which you must comply with. People don't know. Including the fact that you must pay first and then continue forward. And this is the reason why for this public awareness, because people believe that I get assessment, I will not pay until the council adjusts my issue. Also the fact that interest accumulates on your account if you're late with payment.
So how do you handle, for example, you have a lot of older land in Belize that may be owned by a family. There's no clear owner for it, and in a lot of cases they have serious arrears. So how do you handle that situation? Because nobody wants to take it on because it's a daunting undertaking.
Well, everything about the legal process. The issue is that there's a property where there's no taxes paid for years. We must do what the law requires. We must notify the property owner by writing. We have a compliance department that we try to call that person. If there's no response by calling, we put something in writing. Then we publish it because there are process. We publish that property within the paper or the gazette, and after a 3-time publication, no one responds. There's a next step, which is the last step the council want to do, but to bring it to a public action. And so we have a lot of property that's overgrown within Belize City. I say about roughly about 4,000. What we are doing now is to try to call the person, inform the person to bush their property. But those who have outstanding delinquent taxes come in, because they have to call consent payment. You can go at the court and make an agreement at the court where you can pay installments. And then where you fail to do so, they are different, like legal process by summons the property and encourage through the court system to collect that delinquent tax.
But how do you resolve the issue? Like, I'm trying to remember the terminology that where I guess it's a deeded property and it's in a family name or something like that.
Yeah, but then the thing is that it's the responsibility of the property owners to ensure that they pay their taxes. So they must come in and bring in their documents. That's one of the problem that we find. We've been working on our system to try and ensure that we clear it up and have all our properties assessed. One World Bank consultant called us lousy. All our municipalities are lousy in terms of collecting the property tax, which we have a huge arrears. And so we should not really, because we have assets. The city have assets in terms of properties, and they're fixed and they're there. So we need to ensure that we can get all those properties properly assessed. And we have to liaise, right, Troy, with Lands Department to ensure that we get the proper documentation if you don't come in as the property owner. So we need you to come in. And so if we find the property in your name, we will assess you. And if it's in a deed or in different members' name, we will assess the person whose name it is in. And where that person do not come in, whoever the person is, then that is where Troy is saying there is a collection process where we call, we send collecting agents, and eventually we take it to the court. If at the court you don't come in still, then the magistrate can pass a ruling that we put it to action. And that's when we place it in the newspaper, the gazette, that we will action these properties. And you can lose your property for a small fee just to recover our taxes. So it's important that property owners bring in their documents, and if there have been a transfer in property ownership, bring in that document so we can update the role, right?
Now let's move into the issue of trade license. And I believe over the past couple of years it has definitely been an issue that has been widely discussed. The Belize Chamber of, well, the private sector has brought this issue forward several times, and we know the mayor has also addressed it as well. So let's talk about the process for trade license at this point, and yeah, go ahead with that.
Well, as you know from last year, we're trying to do a tax reform when it comes to trade. I sit with myself and Ms. O'Donnell sit on the task force working group, where we're looking at different models, different ways how to levy this trade to bring equity across the board. We believe that 25% indeed at this present juncture is kind of high. It's high based on rental value, and so we're looking at several different models. One was the consumption tax. Two was the we want to do a flat rate tax for businesses, we're looking at all those models so as to ensure equity, fair play, but at the same time, our revenue is at the same, more or less, at the same area. There's a decision needed to be made. We have a meeting this week with the working group this week to look and to try to bring this as quick as possible to a close. But we're using different fields and different feasibility, looking at different. So it takes a while because you want to ensure that the objective of the exercise that you can calculate your own trade license. You don't have to wait about the boards regulate under the law, but you can calculate your license. And so that is the way we want to go, where it is simple and can be justified by any business owner upon applying for a trade license.
Just for clarity, the way it is right now, it's 25% of your annual rental value. So it works out to roughly 3 months rent. That would be your trade license.
And of course, the concern people had was location is one thing, but what the property is being used for is a different scenario. When do you expect to see whatever change is decided on, whether it's a flat rate consumption tax, to come into effect?
Well, we're hoping, can I give you actually prescribed time, but shortly. Definitely shortly. The thing with trade, though, is that people need to understand that once you do a service, you're doing a trade. The law was amended in 2001 in the 7th schedule of Chapter 66, which is the Trade License Act. There was only 10 businesses who should have paid trade license. And we realized that made no sense because people are doing trade all over the city, warehouse, boutique, and so. The problem with that, with the feasibility study, shows that you can have a small business making millions for paying a small trade. You can have a big building making nothing, have a high trade. And so we look at all those unfair playing field. It's about affordability of pay taxes. So the jubilation period is very important. That's why we are making effort to ensure that quickly for this 2015 that is on board. You have to be a license change. You look at the legal process. That is the process, the legal ramification and the steps. And like liquor, for example, a liquor license is so simple. So you have a beer license, it does not matter where you are. You could be at the tourism village or at port, you pay the same fee. It's something like that, but trade more different. Because you deal with kind of profit margin, you deal with location indeed, you deal with different models. So we're looking at those things. So we hope to bring that to close shortly. Can I tell you exactly what month or what date, but definitely.
And the engagement of the private sector in this process?
Yes. They are on the task committee. There are different agencies that sit on that committee. We are there outside, NGOs, government, chamber. So there is a balance. So that at the end of the day, that once that is launched, we can do more campaign in respect to how the fee is arrived at and what justification cause the board or the council or the committee use so as to bring equity to people.
What we don't want to do because of the trade license is to discourage business. We want to encourage small businesses, and what we don't want, also we don't want to have people move outside of the city, move their business outside of the city to avoid paying a trade license. But it is high right now, and like Mr. Smith was saying, because it's based on your rental value, you could have a small office and you're making millions and your trade license will be small. And you could have a huge building and you're not making a high profit, but because of the size of your building and the rental value of the building, your trade license will be higher. So it is something that we really need to look at to have it be more fair and to encourage small businesses. Because for you to come up with 3 months rent at the start of your business, it's difficult. So that is something that the task force is looking at.
One of the challenges that we have in coming up with that rate, and it maybe why it is taking a while, is that we talk about the income part and that we want it to be equitable based on your income or the business, the monies that the business generates. And that is the challenge, because in Belize it's not easy to get what the income of a business is. And that's a challenge, because we would have to rely on the businesses to provide their income information.
Self-report,
That's right. Whereas in terms of the basis that we use, your property is there, it's a fact. It exists, it's measurable, and so the the rental value, a basis using a rental value is there. It's actual. And the fact is that a business operates a space that you can measure is a good base to measure off. One challenge is for us to recover that same revenue that we're getting from the method that we have presently. The city cannot operate without that revenue. As a matter of fact, when you look at it, although we would say our revenue collection generation is about 20 million, because not including the subvention, it sounds like a lot. When you put that together and you start spending on the city, you can see that we can't even afford to do some streets. And we really need those revenue. So we have to come up with a rate that will be acceptable. It may be that some business rates may go up as compared to some may come down. So it's something that we really, really have to look at, and we really need the businesses to participate in.
I think what is the thing I want to point out is the issue of responsibility of the applicant. A lot of time people apply for a trade license, close the business, leave, and do not notify the board. And then here we have interest, the bill on the account. And so I want to re-notify the business owner that once you close your business, you must notify the board. The next thing I see with the trade is that there's a high turnover of business closing, business open, but it's a type of business closing and a type of business open. And so I sit on the board as an ex-official member, as evaluator, and I could say our average at 200 business per year close, about 200 open, but it's a type that is closed and type that's open. So I want to really encourage business owner that they must notify the board upon closure of your business establishment.
And the penalty on the interest on a trade account is 10% per month. So it's very high. So the business owner needs to come into the council. We allow for payment arrangements. Once you have a payment arrangement, we halt the interest, but for you to be accumulating 10% per month, simply because you have not come in to make an arrangement as to how to pay your trade license.
And then the provision of the stop order, where the law provides that the board can issue a stop order to cease and desist operation so as to come in to try to settle and make an arrangement of your fees, because once you operate with a license, you operate illegally, and they are the legal restriction in the court that you can charge 2,000, 6 months, or both imprisonment. And so we want to really look with the objective not to close any business, but to try to encourage them to come in with the reform. One of the things we're looking at is that payment, because right now, once you apply for a license, you must pay it up front before you begin. We're looking at target within a quarter payment, so as to give out room for a business to actually make some kind of income, so as to afford to pay their fees. No, so that's something also looking at with the reform.
Now, one of the things that I heard twice, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is the whole idea that you want to maintain the same threshold in terms of collections as they now stand. For some people, that will immediately go like, well, nothing will change if you want to. But are you trying to increase compliance, and how are you working at compliance to broaden the tax base, so to speak?
Compliance, trade license collection is very high, very high. The issue of looking at the method to get the same over $4 million is very, very tricky. You have to understand. It's not about increase, nobody actually licensed to bring fair play, because a lot of people are not paying what they should have paid from day one, because a lot of time the previous board used under Section 5 the power to make discrepancy decision. And like, for example, let me give you a perfect example, the tourism village. A booth in the village might be $1,500 US per month. Just one section of the booth, or chaos. Now you imagine you apply 25% of the annual trade license for that. You look past $60,000 more or less, or higher. We don't even use the rental value. So say we use equity rental value. Just look at the size of the business. So when you're doing the reform of this tax and using the method, there will indeed be people that their trade license will look far different from others, like we did the reform in 2013, which spurred up this all notification of this high trade license. But for many years, people were not paying their fair share of taxes. Not to say you want to kill the business, but what the council want to do is to bring equity. And so that is very, very excellent question, looking at who will be changing, who remains, and that's something that we are looking at carefully, because the idea is not to stagger the business, but to encourage the business by paying. And if people see that my neighbor and me they pay the same amount, I don't have a problem. But the problem with the equity, the rent, that you they pay one price, I they pay one price on the same street, name the same side, because the rental value is different. That's unfair. And so all that too we are looking at to bring to justification.
Now, obviously we've been focusing on trade and property, but there's also been discussion on garbage collection. And even I think at one point we were talking about additional fees if you didn't clean in front of your yard, etc. What are the new areas that we're looking at in terms of revenue generation for the council, and how will you not only educate the public but introduce it so that they actually buy in and pay in, more importantly?
In terms of garbage collection, it's not a new provision. There are two options for any business to dispose of their garbage, and that's what we've been trying to educate the public. A business has two choices. They could either use waste control, or they can take their garbage to the landfill on their own. In either case, they need to provide proof to the council of how they're disposing of their garbage, because what happens too often is that businesses create hotspots where they just find a public container and they dispose of their garbage there. We have some businesses that dump it on empty lots, and collecting garbage is a huge, Ms. Ordonez can tell you how much money we spend annually on payment for garbage collection. So we need to educate business places. You have two options. You can use waste control. You can dispose of your garbage on your own, take it to the landfill. If you're using waste control and one of our inspectors come around, you need to be able to provide them with a receipt that shows that you paid waste control. If you dispose of your garbage at the landfill, then you need to provide us with a receipt of what you paid at the landfill. If you cannot, as a business, provide any evidence as to how you're disposing of your garbage, then the council has the right to suspend your trade license.
How often does that happen? Because the problem we're speaking of is one that I think everybody is aware of, that some businesses would be the ones to dump garbage in areas that are not disposal sites. So putting it in a public container is one thing, at least they're attempting to reach your garbage. But putting it in an empty lot or a corner of a street is a different scenario, and we see this stuff taking place. So how often is it a situation where a business is suspended for not providing proof of how they get rid of their garbage?
It doesn't happen very often, but we are currently having an exercise where we have our sanitation inspectors visiting all the business places. We are sending out flyers to remind people, because it's funny, we take these things for granted, but a lot of businesses just are not aware of it. So we're going through the process of sensitizing the public, and once we feel we've done that, then it will be happening a lot more often. And like I said, garbage collection, it's frustrating. I'll give you an example. We put garbage containers along by the Michael Finnegan Market, and we had to move them because what they did, they created hotspots. The tenants, they dump their garbage in the public, and those are for people that are passing by that would need to throw away a cup or throw away something. But what the businesses do, they load up the garbage containers, and when they're full, they start to put the garbage around the containers. So we actually created hotspots by trying to provide garbage containers. So it's a frustrating thing. So like I said, we have our inspectors going around. We are passing out flyers. We're educating the business places right now, and then the process of enforcement will be rigid.
And are we going to remain only with commercial charges, or because that was a part of the conversation as well, residential?
We had intended to do a residential fee, and the council did not implement that because the solid waste ministry would have done countrywide. However, we're still looking at the possibility, but in the meantime, the city is still charged with cleaning all the street sides. But the law is there, you know, that property owners should clean at least 2 feet in front of their property. It's not a new law; it is there, and so it's just basically enforcement. But we think that public pride in keeping your property should be foremost in your mind as a property owner, to keep in front of your place clean. So in the meantime, the council is imploring on the property owners to keep their properties clean. And we still have, you know, we have taken on all the workers for BML, and so they're in the process of cleaning the city. I'm sure you've seen a lot of the medians clean. It's really looking up, and so we're still doing, and it's a cost. So if we can reduce those costs, it would be more money to fix streets, right? But you were asking about new revenue. We, at this moment, we're not implementing a new revenue stream, but we want to look at enforcement. There are a lot of violation of the laws in terms of the traffic, the building permits. Mr. Thompson would tell you that we see properties going up and they're without building permits, and that is for people who are building properties. It's not safe, you know, because we have building inspectors who can come and put a hole on your property, construction, if you don't have a permit. So it's important you get a permit, and the permit is to ensure that you have a plan, and that your plan is properly assessed by the local authority or the central building authority. You don't want to reach halfway and your plan is not properly done. So it's important
and meeting the regulations that are in place.
Exactly.
Now, this is one thing that we see happen very often, and it's not just building a new building; it's renovations as well, right? Yeah. What is the process that a person should undertake?
The process is, firstly, they need to bring in 3 copies of the plan submitted to the local building authority. That goes to a meeting. They review the plan. If there's any changes, they're informed in writing of the changes that need to be made, and then they pay for their permit. Then they are issued with a permit and notice to commence, which states within a certain period they will start. The plan is valid for 1 year, and then it has to be reviewed should in case there are any alterations or any amendments made to the specifications or the laws when it comes to construction.
Now, when we start talking about the collection of taxes in general, people get very nervous. And you're talking about assessments throughout the city to really increase, but you have some areas, for example, that are developing almost rapidly without proper infrastructure.
Right.
How do you handle those areas and to encourage people to actually get into the system, especially when there aren't even roads in some cases to gain access to those areas?
One of the things with that is that the previous councils was doing a thing called a waiver where there's no infrastructure. City and Bridge behind Khaled and then Belama when we put some house way back there. But what we find out is that the same property that there is no access, they are selling these properties for X amount of thousands of dollars. And so there's a provision that you pay on an unimproved value. You must pay a tax, because at the time roads not push it, but they are proposed road. People build on the road because there's no proper plan that just go and encroach on the actual public way. We have to do a lot of enforcement on that with the engineer section. The issue of people that construct where there is no access, no utility, but the same property that people use where there's no access these property are selling for X amount. So there is a provision that we charge on improved value, a small tax. You must pay a small tax, and so when the road push through, you're already on the tax base, no? But definitely we must charge because we were thinking that there's no infrastructure, so let's leave no.
But I asked that question because you've had a lot of squatting, for example.
Yes.
There's nobody there in terms of the ownership. So how do you tax when you're talking about that particular issue?
What we do is that the Belize City Council do not issue lease nor title. That's the Ministry of Lands. And so we are connecting, we are working close with the ministry to get proper data. Because at the time you go to a property and they say, William Young live on that property when Troy Smith own that property. And so you might tax the wrong person. And that's where in recent past what's happening. Where land issue a lease to you, you don't even know you get your lease. Cancel it and give it to Marlene. But on the tax roll we have William. Not knowing William did apply but never got a lease. And then they cancel. And so we have a lot of that. So what we do now with the link with the Ministry of Lands to get the proper data. And this is where we have a backlog with our tax system. Because a lot of people named on the roll do not own that property no longer. And so to bring more a expedient process in the court is to get the actual land data from the Ministry of Natural Resources. So we're doing at Yokawa. We hope to do an interconnection to get them so as to expedite the court process. And that's why we want to encourage property owner, whether access or no access, you need to bring in your document to the Belize City Council. They believe that once they buy a property, the land's supposed to notify the council. No, the law says you're supposed to notify the council, and that is the reason.
And how do you do that? In writing? Do you come in?
Yeah, they come in and bring a copy of the document to show proof that you are the owner of the property, an ID, and also, because one of the things we find in recent past, most unoccupied property, the bill may go to the same property, and no one live there. And so what the council put in place is a main address system where you live one spot and the property is at another location. We send the bill where you live, not where the property is. And so we're developing new policy within the council so as to bring more efficiency, because a lot of people don't want to pay, but yet they call the tax show and they want the service. And so it's our responsibility to ensure these things happen.
We're getting ready to wrap. One final question. If I purchase a land,
yes,
a piece of land, and it has back taxes, who's responsible then?
It depends. Two things. If you become, it's a property's lease and the government cancel and give it to you, under the law, you do not inherit no liability because it's a lease. So the previous leasee still owes those tax while under preemption had that lease. Then you will pay from the date you become the new leasee. No. Secondly, when you buy a property that is titled and you don't ensure the tax is paid, you inherit those taxes. Because the law said, buyers beware. So you should have checked into everything, that the tax is paid, everything is there, the rest you become liable once it is a property, a title property.
All right. Well, we want to thank you for joining us this morning. Of course, we know there are many people who have questions about these issues, so hopefully we've been able to address some of those this morning. All right. We're going to go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, it's to talk about the Placencia Sidewalk Art and Music Festival. Stay tuned.